Today we're going to give our last building block, the last way to combine two statements. We're going to look at conditional statements and also the negation of conditional statements. A conditional statement is also known as an if-then statement. There are many ways to write these. So we could say if P then Q for your favorite phrases or statements P and Q. For instance, if it's late, then I will go to bed. This is also the same thing as saying P implies Q. So again, with that example, if it's late, then I go to bed says the same thing as it is late implies I go to bed. We symbolize this with an arrow. So P arrow Q means if P then Q, and it also means P implies Q. These are all the same way to same. These are all one way to say the same thing. So for instance, here's a phrase. If it's sunny, then we go for a walk. If we wanted to identify the statements P and Q, we could say if P then Q, it's sunny would be P, then Q would be then we go for a walk, so Q would be we go for a walk. Okay, here's another example. If you're happy and you know it, then clap your hands. So what is the truth table for this building block? Well, we have P and Q, which are the only two statements that make up this conditional statement. So we write down all of the possibilities for P and Q. Again, this looks very familiar. We have true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Now it turns out that if true implies true, we have a true statement. If true implies false, that is a false statement. False implies true is true, and lastly, false implies false is true. This might be a little bit counterintuitive. We'll do some examples to help try to make some sense out of it, but again, this is a building block truth table that should be memorized. This is really helpful to remember that false statements corresponds to lies. For instance, if I say, if the earth is flat, then pigs lie. Well, am I lying to you if I say that? The answer is no, because if we identify P with the phrase, the earth is flat, that is a false statement, and pigs don't fly. So if I were to tell you, if the earth is flat, then pigs fly, I'm not lying. This is an example of false implies false is true. And one more time, true means not lying to you, false means lying to you. If I were then to say, if the earth is flat, then we study math, and if I ask you, is this a lie or not? Well, again, this isn't a lie because the hypothesis that the earth is flat is false, and so whatever comes afterwards can never happen. Therefore, this is an example of false implies true is a true statement. Again, true meaning it's not a lie. But let's look at this next example. If I were to say, if we study math, then the earth is flat, if I were to tell that to you, this would be a lie, because we do study math, but the earth isn't flat. So, this is an example of true implies false is false. What we're doing here is we're showing the truth value or the truth table for specific examples. Alright, we are now ready to look at the negation of P implies Q. There's an easy way to denote this. We can denote it with a not symbol in front of the phrase P implies Q. But there's another way to actually represent that, and that's P and not Q. These are two equivalent statements. This will be important to know. It is not obvious why this is true, but if we were to look at the truth tables, so here's the truth table for P implies Q, and we want to negate it, we have the uppermost table for it is not the case that P implies Q. And now if we look at the truth table for P and not Q, what we see is when we look at P and not Q, so forgetting about the middle column and just looking at P and not Q, those two columns, what we end up getting is false, true, false, false, down the last column. These are the same last column, which tells us that these two statements are equivalent. All right. So let's actually use this with an example. If I were to say, if it's sunny, then we go for a walk. If I wanted to negate this, I could do something really silly and say, it is not the case that if it's sunny, then we go for a walk. But that's sort of hard to understand. So if we wanted to negate this, I would identify what P and Q are. So P is it's sunny, and Q is we go for a walk. And then the negation would be P and not Q. So the negation of the phrase, if it's sunny, then we go for a walk, is it's sunny and we don't go for a walk. That makes a little bit of sense in terms of English. All right, so that finishes the slide for today. Feel free to stop and rewind and pause when necessary.